Feast of Tabernacles by George H. Warnock. Chapter 4. The Sheaf of First Fruits. The waving of the sheaf of first fruits before the Lord took place on the morrow after the Sabbath. And it would be on the 16th day of the first month. All the events, therefore, in connection with the Feast of Unleavened Bread found their perfect fulfillment in the death and resurrection of Christ. The Passover event itself was on the 14th day of the first month, in the evening. That's the day for the crucifixion, which in the New Testament is called the preparation, or the day before the Sabbath. See Mark 15:42, Luke 23:56. Then followed the days of unleavened bread, beginning on the 14th day and continuing for 7 days. Then on the 16th day, which was the morrow after the Sabbath, the sheaf of first fruits was waved before the Lord. It's clear from the New Testament, then Christ rose the third day. Matthew 16:21, Luke 23:54-56, and 24:46. And according to the generally accepted terms of the day, this was equivalent to saying he rose after 3 days. Matthew 27:63, Mark 8:31. Therefore, to fulfill the type of the Old Testament, is clear that the Christ was crucified on the day of the Passover. The Sabbath followed the next day, and the sheaf of first fruits was weighed before the Lord on the morrow after the Sabbath. Christ, the first fruits. Here we have a beautiful type, therefore, of the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead on the morrow after the Sabbath. Mark tells us now when Jesus was risen early the first day of the week. Mark 16:9. It was the beginning of the harvest season, when the fields were beginning to show the first signs of a ripening harvest. Before there was any general harvest, however, one sheaf was garnered and weighed before the Lord on the first day of the week during the feast of unleavened bread. And therefore, in the waving of that one sheaf, Israel would be reminded of the fact that soon a great harvest was to be gathered in. Perhaps there was not a single person in the camp of Israel who saw anything more in that ordinance than the promise of a great harvest. But in type, it spoke beautifully of Christ, the first fruits. 1 Corinthians 15:20-23. And thus as assuredly and the one ripe sheaf testified to Israel that a great harvest was soon to be garnered, so surely did the resurrection of Christ testify to the fact that soon after that event, there would be a great spiritual harvest of souls. And so there was. Thousands upon thousands came to know the Lord in the week that were to follow, when God sent forth the Holy Spirit and empowered his waiting disciples to preach the gospel. Soon the revival spread to the Gentiles, and the Apostle Paul was raised up to evangelize practically the whole Roman Empire. The corn of wheat must die. Jesus himself testified, except the corn of wheat fall into the ground to die, it abides alone. But if it die, it brings forth much fruit. John 12:24. Except he die, there could be no harvest. And the fact that he did die and rose again was a positive proof that it would be a great and mighty harvest. Christ the first fruits. And if he was first fruits, then certainly there must be a great harvest to follow his resurrection. This explains, in part, the strange reply that Jesus gave to Philip and Andrew when they told him of certain Greeks who desired to see him. Incidentally, it was the feast of Passover, when these God-fearing Greeks had gathered to observe the feast of the Jews. Jesus' only reply was, except the corn of wheat fall into the ground to die, it abideth alone. But if it die, it brings forth much fruit. In other words, in his present position, he had no ministry for them, for he had nothing in common with them. He must first go down into death before he could mean anything to them. If and when his death was accomplished, then he would be able to minister light to all men, irrespective of race or nationality, in the great harvest that would follow the resurrection. That great harvest constitutes the feast of Pentecost.